Well, we're going to call the Santa Barbara City Council meeting to order on Bastille Day. Will you please stand to say the Pledge of Allegiance with us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will you call the roll? Oh.
Council Agency Member Falcone. Here. Francisco.
Here.
Horton.
Here.
House.
Here.
Schneider. Here. Williams. Mayor. Chair Bloom. Here. Item number 1, Employee Recognition Service Award Pins.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, as you know, every month we recognize employees who are receiving service award pins, and this month all in total we're recognizing 15 employees with 200 years of city experience, and I'd like to read their names into the record, and then we have two employees here to receive service award pins. So first, with 5 years, Philip Neverez, who's a maintenance worker 2 in Public Works. Craig Hove, who I think are an electrician in Public Works. This is again Keldhove, it's Craig though. Robert Garcia, custodian in Public Works. David DePonce, who's a custodial crew leader at the airport. And Esteban Zambrano, who's a senior wastewater collection systems operator in Public Works. With 10 years, Chris Bell, who's the city TV production specialist in the city administrator's office. And Victoria Johnson, the project engineer 1 in Public Works. With 15 years, Todd Stoney, who's a police sergeant. Alex Cruz, who's a police officer. And Mary Linda Arroyo, who's a police sergeant. And then with 20 years, we have Larry Doria, who's a streets maintenance crew leader in Public Works. Cheeto Macario, who's a treatment plant technician in Public Works. And Sandy Dietz, who's the airport maintenance coordinator. And we have 2 employees here to receive service award pins today with 25 years of service. First, we have Connie Sturwall, who's a human resource analyst in administrative services, and Carol Carpenter, who's the housing loan officer in community development.
Thank you. Pick up this one and see which one it is. It's Carol Carpenter. Come on down. 25 years. I'm going to give you your pin first. All right. There you go. And read your letter of recognition. It says Carol Carpenter's career with the city began in July 1984 when she was hired as an accountant by the finance department. 2 years later, she was promoted to reporting supervisor in the accounts payable division, where she supervised several other employees. She was responsible for preparing monthly financial reports for the city council, as well as the comprehensive annual finance reports. Carol moved to Community Development Department in July 1994 when she was selected to become a Housing Programs Coordinator, a newly created position. As Housing Programs Coordinator, she utilized her residential real estate experience to establish procedures for monitoring the sales and refinances of affordable housing units. Furthermore, she was tasked with handling issues such as compliance enforcement and foreclosures. Carol was promoted to her current position, Housing Loan Officer, in February 1999. She's responsible for all aspects of the city's housing rehabilitation loan program. She takes pride in assisting low-income homeowners through the stressful process of completing major repairs and improvements to their homes. She's established trust and rapport with her clients and the construction contractors whose work she oversees. She is patient and committed to the job and has earned the respect for her many successes. Carol received a Bachelor of Arts in Economics and Environmental Studies from UCSB. She's an accomplished golfer, duplicate bridge player, Toastmaster, and has traveled around the world. Carol, you've been a dedicated and valuable employee, member of the City of Santa Barbara team, and it's an honor to recognize your 25 years of service, as well as your many personal and professional accomplishments. On behalf of the city and your fellow citizens, thank you and congratulations on your outstanding achievement of 25 years.
Thank you.
Thank you. A lot of people.
Thanks. Madam Mayor and City Council members, 25 years ago this month, I came to City Hall to interview for the job opening of the accountant position in the finance department. As I crossed De La Guerra Plaza, the Olympic torch was being relayed down State Street on its way to Los Angeles for the 1984 Olympics. At the same time, the Apple Corporation had just released its new personal computer, the Macintosh. The term cyberspace had just been coined, and Geraldine Ferraro had become the first female vice presidential running mate. Back then, the city had no information systems division. That means there were no computers. All of the payroll information was walked up to the county admin building to be processed into paychecks. The city's accounting system used a manual typewriter-like device, which typed red for credits, black for debits, onto 8.5 by 11 green cards. Since then, I'm glad to say that the city has grown into a much more educated and sophisticated organization. I'm grateful to have served the Finance Department for 10 years and the last 15 with the Housing and Redevelopment Division within the Community Development Department. In my current role of loan officer for the Housing Rehab Loan Program, I have the opportunity to assist low-income homeowners and nonprofit organizations with the rehab of their properties, which has been an extremely gratifying experience, both for them and for myself. I'd like to thank my boss, Stephen Falstich, for creating such a supportive working environment for the last 15 years, and in turn, Brian Busse and Paul Casey for their part in that. And lastly, I'd like to thank my life partner, Janet, for sharing the last 19 years with me. Thank you.
We have Connie Sturwell. Hi, Connie. And I have your pin. Thank you. And to read your, to give honor and thanks to you. Connie Sturwell was born and raised in Minnesota and graduated from Mankato State University with a degree in Recreation and Parks Administration. In 1978, she worked briefly for the County of Santa Barbara before joining the Peace Corps in Columbia, South America. After the Peace Corps, she worked for the Easter Seal Society in Iowa before returning to Santa Barbara in 1984. Connie started her city employment on July 23, 1984, as an administrative specialist in the city clerk's office. She was promoted in February 1986 to a human resources assistant in the Human Resources Department. She became a human resources technician in August of 1990 and promoted to her current position of human resources analyst in October 1992. In 1993, Connie obtained her professional designation in Human Resources Management from UCLA Extension. Connie works closely with the representatives and employees from the Administrative Services, City Attorney, Community Development, Finance, Fire, Library, Parks and Recreation, and Waterfront departments in order to assist them in their recruiting, employee relations, and other human resources-related needs. She is valued and respected by her peers for her experience and insight gleaned through her many years of experience with the city. Connie is outgoing, gregarious, and fun to be around. She's an avid cyclist, enjoying bicycle riding and touring with her friends. She is close to her large family and enjoys spending time with her many nieces and nephews. Connie, it's my pleasure to honor you today for your 25 years of service to the City of Santa Barbara. And on behalf of the City Council and the staff of Human Resources, we congratulate you on your admirable achievement. Thank you. Yes.
Madam Mayor, council members, fellow employees, and friends, it is with amazement and sincere gratitude that I'm receiving my 25-year pin in front of you today. I really never in my wildest dreams thought I'd be here this long. Prior to working for the city, I had a no more than 2-year rule. 2 years as a recreation therapist working with children with special needs, then 2 years working with street children in the Peace Corps in Columbia, South America, and another 2 years as a recreation program manager and respite care coordinator at a year-round Easter Seals camp in the Midwest. Each of these jobs was for 2 years. What happened to my 2-year rule? The city of Santa Barbara came along. Looking back over these 25 years, it is rather dreamlike and a bit surreal. In 1984, Lily Rossi snatched me away from the county to work in the city clerk's office. Then Marianne May Ambrose from Personnel coaxed me into applying for a position in Personnel, and so began a whole new career with lots to learn and great mentors like Joan Kent, Barbara Barker, and Tracy Peary. And along with Barbara, Susie Gonzalez and I have worked together except for when Susie took a year off. Sometimes it seems like things don't change, but they do. Since 1984, all the department heads have changed, along with hundreds of faces that have come and gone. And we don't administer steno tests or word processing tests or typing tests anymore. No more setting up those heavy IBM typewriters in the annex, which I'm thankful for. Human resources is a complex, challenging career, yet I find it rewarding to work in a team environment, searching for creative solutions, providing advice and information as best as I can in an ever-changing field. Through the cycles of good times and challenging times, there is always incredible support from employees who have become friends at all levels throughout the city. I can't imagine working with nicer people or a better employer. I want to especially express my gratitude to my coworkers in Human Resources and all the staff in my departments throughout the city. As part of the Human Resources team, I look forward to continuing striving to provide the best service for all the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Connie. Thanks to both of you. That was wonderful. Are there any changes to the agenda?
No, there aren't, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Public comment. We have a few people. David Daniel Diaz, followed by Gert Walter.
We're losing most of our audience.
Yeah. It's true.
What a crowd. Thank you very much. Hello. I've been researching and dwelling around town looking for activities for families and kids to become involved with. The recent restaurant that opened across from the theater in Paseo Nuevo, Live Culture, it turns out they turn out to be pretty good. You know, there's a restaurant. It's the only beer wine bar in town, and they have yogurt, variety of yogurts, and in the evenings, there's young people and old people singing and playing music up on the upper platform in the facility, and families are coming, kids are running around having a great time. It's a blast to see family healthy activities. It's like a little center that's migrating there now. Back at the center Sage Theater, the group Proximity Theater Group, they're young people working with younger people, and it seems to be a very healthy environment. And I think if probation and social services were to come down and check these activities out to see what family is all about, they might want to spend more money on kids when they're young as opposed when they get in trouble when they get older. But anyhow, the people over at Live Culture, I told them what I was going to mention, and so they gave me some coupons to give to the board members to perhaps go by one evening and check it out. Enjoy your day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. Gert Walter will be followed by Monica Jones. Oops.
Madam Mayor and members of the council, I thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. I come to you mainly to pray for you, but before I do that, I wanted to commend you for your support of the restorative policing program. I personally witnessed Officer Hove get 2 chronic homeless from Santa Barbara off the streets last week. One onto a bus on his way to Nashville, and the other into a detox facility. It was wonderful to see the change in these men's lives, and I really applaud you for supporting that program. And before I pray, I wanted to mention I understand that there are people that may take offense to my praying in the name of Jesus Christ, and offending people is certainly the last thing I want to do, but I want to remind you that I see prayer as a very personal issue. To pray other than personally, I think, would be hypocritical and a sham. And I realize other people pray in other forms and other ways, and I respect that. And I ask them to respect my personal prayer for you. Lord, we lift up Mayor and the members of the council as they work today to solve the problems and identify the issues that are pertinent to the people of this city. We ask, Lord, that you help them with your Holy Spirit to give them wisdom, discernment, a lot of knowledge, perseverance in solving the problems that we have. We pray that you would guide them in their work and you would give them strength. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, Monica Jones. And then the last speaker will be Kate Smith.
Mayor Bloom and members of the City Council, I am still Monica Jones. I am here again. Hope not be coming for 25 years raising money, but I did want to give you an update. As you know, the Friends of Los Banos have been raising money to keep Ortega Pool open, where 100 children every day are enjoying the free recreational swim. And I do want to thank you for your faith in us, that you went ahead and kept the pool open with the understanding that we would raise the necessary funds. And I encourage you to go by Ortega Pool, which is on Salsas Puentes and Cota, some weekday between 1:30 and 3, and you can see all the children who are there. They only let 40 children in the pool at a time, so there's always a waiting list, and the pool is really fully utilized. We also raised money to keep the Los Banos pool open on Sundays, and there were close to 50 people there this Sunday, and those people are also very grateful for the opportunity to be able to swim. Of all the money we needed to raise, we are now only $2,000 short. So I would encourage you and anyone here today and anyone listening on television to donate generously. This is a matter of giving forward. The latest statistic I saw was that 6,500 people drown every year in the United States. This is really serious business, that children learn how to swim, and also Los Banos is very important because although one may think it's just people swimming for exercise and fun, and the latest statistics incidentally show that swimmers live longer than runners. That being said, it is important because Los Banos has a shallow area where people who are not proficient in swimming learn how to swim. So anybody watching this online, I would like to encourage you to donate. You can donate online to www.friendsoflosbanos.org. That's www.friendsoflosbanos.org. And if you do not have a computer, you can also donate to the Friends of Los Banos, P.O. Box 91644, P.O. Box 91644, Santa Barbara 93190. In case you don't have a pencil at hand wherever you are, you can always call the mayor's office and they will give you this information. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for what you're doing for the city. It's very nice. Kate Smith?
Madam Mayor, I just
Yes.
had two
Go ahead.
questions. First of all, I asked to be your Facebook friend, so I hope you'll be my Facebook friend.
I am, and we're
and
even
then-
on Facebook now. Keep Santa Barbara pools open.
That's right. So people can contact you also on Facebook to help
Yes.
out. But so the matching, so people, even if they give a little bit, their donation will be matched by towards the Ortega pool.
Every little bit helps. So if you give $5 doubled, it becomes 10. And if you have 5 friends who each give 5, that's 25 becomes 50. And if you have generous friends and 5 of you give 25, that's 125 and it makes 250. But we have really been working day and night since the end of May on this. And we're grateful for you that you supported us in our efforts. But we hope other people within the community can support us too.
And that number is 569-2417?
2407.
I guess my vision
I'm in the phone book under Desmond and Monica Jones. Anybody can call me with any questions.
Good.
Thank you,
And I'm
Monica.
happy to speak to any group and help anybody with fundraising.
Thank you.
Thank you
Monica.
so much.
Thanks for doing what you're doing. Kate Smith will be our last speaker.
You said it was 91644. Is it 44 or 22? You said 4. 91622.
Okay. P.O. Box 91622. You said 44, yeah. Okay. She doubled it. She was doing the matching thing. Thank you. Okay. Kate? Thank you.
Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, last week the Board of Supervisors voted 5-0 not to appeal Superior Court Judge Denise DeBelfay's ruling that put a noose around voter registrar and elections manager and county council. And the rope leads to Bill Cerrone and his cronies and to Tom Snedden and his school-to-prison pipeline. Since the closed session agenda item listed the wrong plaintiff name, the wrong defendant name, and the wrong case number, I went to inform the board that there is not only corruption, but there is incompetence in our government. They would have to correct the listing, and I asked that they vote to appeal so that the 4 subpoenaed government employees could be called to the stand, swear to tell the truth, and then explain how the disqualification came about. I spent 12 years preparing for that moment of truth, for my day in court, and it will happen in due time. In the last year since my birthday on 08/08/08, I set about to expose school corruption, reform education, and restore justice and democracy in our schools and community. That was the answer to a question on my mug, coffee mug. It said, "What would you set out to do if you knew you could not fail?" Visit School Talk for the rest, SB School Talk. I am the only political candidate in the history of the United States who was removed from a ballot without due cause. Nothing was submitted to the judge to explain the disqualification because they counted on that appeal. They counted on county council appealing so that they could be protected by a lawyer. In small claims court, there are no lawyers.
Okay, Miss, your time is up.
Okay, happy Bastille Day.
Bastille Day. Thank you. We have the consent calendar. Go ahead and read what you need to read, Brenda.
Item number 3, adoption of amendment of zoning ordinance for non-residential construction projects regulations, Measure E. Recommendation that council adopt by reading of title only an ordinance of the council of the city of Santa Barbara amending section 28.87.300 of chapter 28.87 of title 28 of the municipal code regarding limitations on non-residential development within the city. Item number 4, adoption of amendments to the purchasing code, Chapter 4.52 of the Municipal Code. Recommendation that council adopt by reading of title only an ordinance of the council of the city of Santa Barbara amending Chapter 4.52 of Title 4 of the Santa Barbara Municipal Code, providing procedures for the purchase of equipment, supplies, and services. Item number 5, introduction of ordinance establishing a building safety assessment placard system. Recommendation that council introduce and subsequently adopt by reading of title only an ordinance of the council of the city of Santa Barbara amending Title 22 of Santa Barbara Municipal Code to add Chapter 22.09 establishing a building safety assessment placard system. Item number 6, used oil recycling block grant, 15th cycle, including recommendation A, that council adopt by reading of title only a resolution of the council of the city of Santa Barbara authorizing the finance director to submit an application to the State of California Integrated Waste Management Board for fiscal year 2010 used oil recycling block grant, 15th cycle, in the amount of $22,812. Item number 13, Agency Board approval of grant of easement at Railroad Depot and council introduction of ordinance approving grant of easement on city property near the Morton Bay Fig Tree for the Lower Mission Creek project, including recommendation A, that council introduce and subsequently adopt by reading of title only an ordinance of the council of the city of Santa Barbara approving a grant of easement to Santa Barbara County Flood Control and Water Conservation District for the Lower Mission Creek project. And item number 15, contract for construction of the West Downtown Pedestrian Improvement Project, including recommendation E, that council adopt by reading of title only a resolution of the council of the city of Santa Barbara approving and adopting the findings required by Health and Safety Code section 33445 for funding of capital improvements to the West Downtown Pedestrian Improvement Project.
Okay, that was reading by title only. Some of these things we have to read by title only, but if anyone objects, we're going to have to read everything word by word. Does anybody object? It's amazing how no one ever objects. So we'll waive further reading. We have a speaker for item 14, which is to approve the $500,000 grant agreement to the Santa Barbara Trust for improvements to the Alcama Theater. Dan Riker. Did I leave that on you? Hi, Dan.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, my name is Dan Riker. I'm with the law firm of Riker Fau and a bunch of other German names that are not very pronounceable. We represent Unity Shop, and I have submitted to you a letter, which I hope you've all had an opportunity to read. The letter basically points out that while the Unity Shop supports the proposed allocation of $500,000 to improve the Alcama grounds, it opposes any consideration at this time of a bifurcation of the $1.5 million total allocation in such a way that would suggest that the Victoria Hall is available for lease. And the reason for that is because a number of years ago, Unity Shop spearheaded a fundraising campaign to buy that whole Victoria Street Community House project, including the Victoria Hall, and it views the Victoria Hall as an essential part of its future fundraising operations and the activities it carries on here in the community. So as far as Unity Shop is concerned, the hall is not available for lease, and it would not become available for lease absent a judicial determination or a binding arbitration decision to that effect. So we think it would be premature for the redevelopment agency or the council to set aside money for that purpose. And I'm certainly available to answer questions if you have any.
Okay, thank you very much. This is the only speaker on this item. But I know that as I'm reading the item, it says that we would like to have the remaining $1 million remain unprogrammed. That's the idea, not to program it for any particular theater or any particular place. We just wanted to get the Alcama Theater, which is what the trust is kind of anxious to get going with, I think, the $500,000 and put it there and leave the rest unprogrammed. And if I'm not correct, somebody will correct me, I'm sure. What do you know? I hit it right. Mr. House. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. You just wanted to clarify it. Okay, good. Ms. Falcone.
If there are no further comments, I can make a motion, Madam Mayor.
Well, okay, if you want to vote on this separately.
Oh, I don't need to vote on this separately.
Okay.
Okay, fine. I can move the consent calendar if there's nothing else. Not yet.
Well, no, there's
All
item
right.
15. We've got item 15 to take off.
All righty.
Okay. Thank you. So we'll vote on this with the consent calendar. Item 15, and Brenda already read it, but it's contract for construction of the West Downtown Pedestrian Improvement Project, which we have seen a lot of because it's been through a whole neighborhood meetings and several Street Tree Advisory Committee, Parks and Recreation Commission, HLC, and Architecture Board of Review. So this is for letting the contract for those improvements. We have some people who would like to speak to it. Frank Hotchkiss will start, followed by Michael Self.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, City Council. First off, I think that as a part of Santa Barbara Safe Streets, which has been eternally interested in bulb outs, et cetera, that we should have been notified of this, and we never were. So I'd just like to pass that on. I'm not sure if there's anything to do about that now, but it does seem to me far too much money to be spending on what is essentially elective cosmetic surgery. We've got sidewalks than we have streets there. Yeah, we could take some wrinkles out, but do we really want to spend $3.5 million on what really doesn't improve things? Even in the report on the city webpage, it says that on the one hand, it's supposed to improve bicycle safety. On the other hand, a couple of bulb outs are not recommended because they actually would impede bicycles. So there seems to be the contradictions and the expense and the necessity of the city to be conservative fiscally that this one ought to be tabled for a while. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Michael Self will be followed by David Pritchett.
Mayor and Council, thank you for the opportunity to address this item. Our city's over $10 million in debt, and we know this is due to overspending. Now a project comes along to spend almost $3.5 million of taxpayers' money to dismantle 8 intersections, to chop down trees, and install bulb outs against the desires of the community and this unique neighborhood. They have been calling me. The people of this neighborhood are proud that in the 1930s they received a national award for landscaping, and now the city has proposed to take the pride of their neighborhood away by chopping down 18 of their prized mature trees. I hope you had an opportunity to drive those neighborhoods and that you cannot imagine a concrete bulb out is better than a tree. Residents are also demanding their tax dollars be spent wisely and that spending of prioritized for non-frivolous projects. It would be better the money is spent to repair our crumbling bridges and infrastructure. This neighborhood needs to be protected from being a victim of reckless spending. The citizens are calling it another blue line.
David Pritchett will be followed by Jim Westby. I hardly know where to start on this one, but go ahead.
Okay. Good afternoon. I'm David Pritchett, as you know, the chair of the City Transportation and Circulation Committee, and in the same club as our prior two speakers this summer. This is a redevelopment project. It's a different budget, as we know, from the city. I coordinate closely with residents in the West Downtown and Lower West Downtown neighborhoods. The 25 to 30 people I've spoken to like the pedestrian project, and in fact, they'd like to see another one on Haley Street because that's a direct line to Santa Barbara City College up the hill. The features of the project for curb extensions improve pedestrian safety a great deal for the reason we all know that the pedestrian can be visible by traffic that's usually speeding along the streets from the cars. And the design is fine. I don't think street trees are on the actual corners and are affected by the curb extensions. And as always, the Transportation and Circulation Committee is an open venue for anyone in Santa Barbara to discuss the technical and performance of different traffic and safety improvement measures. In fact, our TCC meeting next week on Thursday has a report of various traffic calming implementation that was done in the Upper East neighborhood. That's next week, Thursday night, 6 p.m. The first report with some performance data. We all care about Santa Barbara. We're just disagreeing on how to implement the way we care, but I think the results are pretty clear that curb extensions, bulb outs, whatever you call them, are effective, improve safety for pedestrians, especially on Bass Street and De La Vina Street. Thanks.
Thank you. Jim Westby will be followed by Callum DeForest, and then Alex Peugeot will be the last speaker.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. My name is Jim Westby. I'm really having a hard time understanding why the city of Santa Barbara would spend this kind of money to cut down trees and install bulb outs when so many people in our community are hurting. I mean, this is tough times. And I've never seen any data, and I don't know if you have, and if you have, that's great, but I've never seen any data that states that bulb outs are more safe than no bulb outs. In fact, we know they hinder cyclists because they put the cyclists right out in traffic. We know they hinder trucks all kinds of trucks, large vehicles, because they restrict the turning radius and their ability to get around corners. And they do bring the pedestrian closer to traffic. And if somebody is going off road, they're more apt to hit pedestrians than not. So they may be less safe, not more safe. The other thing, cutting down 18 trees. Now, I happen to be a tree person. I know these are a renewable resource, but cutting down 18, I just can't believe the people in this neighborhood are accepting this. I just can't, I wouldn't accept it, and I know my neighborhood would never accept you cutting down 18 mature trees. We need to be planting more trees, not cutting them down. The other thing is it seems like, especially in these economic times, we ought to be going back to basics. If we have this kind of money to spend on infrastructure, we ought to repair our sidewalks and repair our streets. We have a lot of sidewalks out there that need repair. And I would implore you, if you have that kind of money, that's the kind of thing we should be doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Callum DeForest will be followed by Bonnie Donovan and then Alex Peugeot.
Good afternoon. I'm Callum DeForest, and as you well know, I'm not very fond of bulb outs, curb extensions, or whatever the current phrase is for them, because I feel, though it was approved by the HLC, that I think they destroy the historic street ambience. But nevertheless, I want to know, this seems an awful lot of money to spend on something that its necessity hasn't been fully explored. What kind of pedestrian traffic? I realize Anapabu and Ortega Streets access the bridges that cross the state highway, but certainly traffic-wise, because those cross streets, Ortega and Anapabu, don't go through because of the freeway. There's certainly not much cross-town automobile traffic on them. It's the up and down traffic. And on Bath and De La Vida, these are supposed to be artery streets, not streets that are blocked by traffic commerce. So I think, and has anybody actually counted how many pedestrians are using these crosswalks? It's obviously, it's just stated that it is a hazard to cyclists, and it says right here in something I downloaded that it's well documented that bulb outs are a hazard to cyclists. But has anybody counted the number of pedestrians that use these intersections to warrant this huge expense?
Could you wind up, please? Oh, thank you. We ended together. Bonnie Donovan, followed by Alex Peugeot.
I've been in West Beach for 32 years, and about a month and a half, 2 months ago, I finally got an invitation because a neighbor forwarded one to me, and I went to it for a planning by the city. When I went in there, I asked the lady, I heard there's bulb outs going in our area, and she said, sorry, that's already approved and passed, and we can't comment on it. Yet here we are today. Then, I think you guys are real hypocritical if you pass this. You're the one saying you want all our tourists to come in this town on a train, leave your car behind, and walk to our hotels. Have you gone to Montecito Street and tried to walk with your luggage and try to find a hotel? The sidewalks are all leaning into the street. Nothing's ever been done in our area. There's no lighting, there's no signs, nothing. And if you're not going to protect our tourists, you need to buy a bus to get them to the hotels. But the curb outs, or the bulb outs, whatever you want to call them, puts people out in the streets. We have a high area of traffic, which is Montecito and Bath, where the cars go real fast too. But if you put a bulb out there, You're just going to put the people closer to the traffic. We need help in our neighborhood, yes. West Beach needs a lot of help. Understandably, if we understand this correctly, you're going to replace the sidewalks in only some areas of West Cabrillo, not all of it. Then you're putting bulb outs, which you fastly put one in before July 4th, which is going to be a fountain or something because you dug all the way in the streets. Then you sit there and you put these bulb outs and you put plants on it. How is a pedestrian supposed to use that to get across the street and be safer? And then, oh, there's one more, and I'm going to miss it. I don't know. I messed up on that one. But you need to use this money. Oh, that's what it was. That's what it was. You guys just finished all the sidewalks on East Beach. Yet your city, our city trucks are still driving up on the curbs and on the sidewalks. How is that going to preserve them? Those were just finished. You should be using golf carts like you made Fess Parker do for the park across the street.
Thank you.
But I ask you, don't pass this. We don't want bulb outs in our area. We don't want bicyclists shoved in front of us while we're driving down Cabrillo. And use the money on West Montecito.
Thank you. Alex Peugeot.
Good afternoon, Madam and Council members. I'm Alex Peugeot. As you know, I'm a member of one of your review committees, and we have seen this project several times. As anything that has been reviewed by ABR or landmarks, you can be sure that there will be enough landscaping to replace what's lost, and then some. But I do speak this afternoon on behalf of Santa Barbara Walks, a program that is dedicated to improve pedestrian safety in Santa Barbara and the rest of the South Coast. And let it be clear that all professional opinions, locally, regionally, statewide, nationwide, worldwide, consider traffic calming an improvement to safety. I mean, there is no doubt about it. We can have opinions, but there are facts and there are studies, and consistently, bulb outs have been identified as a way to slow down traffic. And if the speed is less, the safety is greater. I would like to correct for the record that the Bicycle Coalition, the organization that represents bicyclists in the South Coast, does not oppose the curb extensions. In some occasions they do, in most occasions they do not, because they consider slowing traffic an improvement to bicyclist safety as well. And I would also like to say from a personal standpoint that the curb extensions on the on the west side, and on the Cottage Hospital area have been very successful. They were not experimental as done on the east side. They were done well, they were done quick, and they work very well. And specifically the one on De La Vina and Quinto, and around Quinto Street there, and the one on Juniper Way at Miss Calle Real. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. No more. We don't have any more speakers. Just wanted to just clarify a couple of things. A couple of speakers talked about money. We should be spending it instead on streets and sidewalks. We do have a street and sidewalks component for of the general fund, and we are continuing to fix streets. We are continuing to fix sidewalks. The question for us is the downtown business owners, which is the redevelopment money, wanted to spend some money in the West Downtown area. This was several years ago, and that's what this is. This is redevelopment money to be spent down there. Also, this also includes lights. It includes pedestrian lighting, sidewalk replacement, enhanced crosswalks, new street trees, I'll say that twice, and drought-tolerant landscaping and so on. What this is a group of people in the West Downtown area, not on West Cabrillo, in the West Downtown area that came to us and wanted some improvements in their neighborhood. I think you're going to see some great improvements. The West Cabrillo Boulevard sidewalks is a very separate project. That one's already beginning, and it's separate. This is in the West Downtown area. It's where you go over to the West Side Center. It's in that area. It's not at the beach. So just to clarify that. I don't know if I left something else out. I think that's what I took notes on. And I don't know if we need to clarify anything else. Think we're okay? Okay. We have a couple people who'd like to speak on this. Mr. Francisco, and then followed by Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I asked to have this removed from the consent calendar so that we could vote separately on it. And I agree that certainly there are aspects of this project that are admirable. Nobody could argue with street lights and repairing damaged sidewalks. That's all great. The bulb outs, though, are a problem. And I know the transportation planners love them. I don't know anyone else who does. I do admire the fact, though, that in this council agenda report, it's pointed out the areas where bulb outs were not put in because the objections to them were so great, including such things as bulb outs are not proposed at one corner of Anapamu-Chapala intersection because of the Metropolitan Transit District bus turning movements and existing peak hour bike lanes. And this is a problem that's been here from the beginning, and it's not going to go away. We're not putting in a bulb out because it would hamper an existing bus route. Well, what if we change the bus route? What if we add bus routes? These bulb outs are permanent obstructions in intersections. That's what they are. They are meant to cause traffic congestion by narrowing the intersection and eliminating right turn lanes. That's what they're about. These are destructive. We are destroying our street infrastructure in Santa Barbara. And I'm absolutely in favor of everything else about this project, but the bulb outs are a huge mistake. Thank you.
Mr. Williams.
Well, I feel like exaggeration seems to be the name of the game today. This is a large project. This was a project that was brought to us by residents who felt like we were spending a lot of money in making the downtown look really nice and froofy, but nothing on the neighborhoods that were adjacent to the downtown that had impacts on it. And so we decided a number of years ago, it must have been 5.5 years ago, that we were going to spend a significant amount of the redevelopment agency funds. Mind you, of course, this is money that cannot be used for ongoing expenses, redevelopment capital funds, on improving the look and walkability and safety of the West Downtown. This is not a frivolous, aesthetic-based project. This is primarily about public safety in a couple respects. Number one, street lighting. Number two, a lot of these sidewalks are broken up and in bad disrepair because of some of these trees. So that's removing some of the trees, repairing the sidewalks, and adding new trees that will not come into conflict with the sidewalks. I think the folks who are against this seem to have one ideological problem with one small component of the project, which is bulb outs. And I can tell you from my own experience as a resident of one of the neighborhoods where bulb outs have been placed, that when they are done of a modest size, they can be very, very helpful. It's a lot easier for us to cross De La Vina at, Quinto now, to get between where I live on Chapala and down into the Cottage Hospital, Oak Park neighborhood and back. And it does not impact bikes. It does not impact when I drive. It's when they're modest size, they can be very, very useful. So again, to thank you to Mr. Pritchett for correcting some of those misleading points, and we are planting more trees, not just taking them out. We're repairing sidewalks. We're adding drought-tolerant landscaping to improve the amount of to lessen the amount of water that we're using in the area. This is an investment in the West Downtown and something that has been asked for years ago, and it doesn't have anything to do with West Beach.
Okay, Ms. Schneider, and then we need to vote on this separately.
Thank you. There's a question of who would be interested in this area and walking around it. I frequently walk on Anapamu Street to go over the bridge there at the freeway, and That is an area that needs upgrades. If you talk to the West Side Community Center Advisory Committee for many years, they've been asking for this, and it will enhance that area that is adjacent to the park next to the West Side Community Center, and that's part of this project. This is something that has been talked about and allocated for funding and reviewed since I think either 2001 or 2003 with the RDA bond funds, and so it's gone through I don't know how many meetings, and I think if we were to table this again, would be a disservice to the residents who have not seen any redevelopment agency funds, where they're entitled to it because it's in the redevelopment agency zone. You can ask the people in the West Downtown area what they're asking for in terms of keeping their neighborhood more safe, and part of it has to do with infrastructure, and the street lighting there on West Ortega Street in particular is much needed. And to say we're at $10 million in debt and we're spending $3 million in this project is so full of error. I think it needs repeating that the issue about the deficit of the city budget had to do with the general fund, which we balanced a budget just a couple weeks ago and are monitoring what's going on here in the general fund. This money is redevelopment agency funds, could not be used for general fund purposes. So to combine the two as though one is replacing the other, I think should not be put together as fact. It's an error. I've stood on bulb outs before in other intersections, and frankly, it helps me see when cars are coming as opposed to looking at parked cars that might have been blocking my vision when I'm trying to cross a busy street. So as a pedestrian, it actually does help me when I'm crossing busy intersections. And if you're in a wheelchair or you're using a carriage or something like that, you need that visibility when you're crossing the street. Does every intersection need a bulb out? No. And in fact, I appreciate the actual extra attention being taken here to not include some areas where it didn't make sense, but to include them where it does make sense. And to remember that the bicycle lanes are outside where the cars are parked on the curb, and they're not weaving in and out based on a bulb out. There's still a straight line there when there's a bike lane. And so we got to get those facts straight when it comes down to looking at how we look at our intersections in our street design. It's all been there in the engineering report. I'm ready to support this motion today.
Okay, Mr. House, and then we'll have a separate motion.
Yes, thank you very much. And I want to say that for whomever's listening, if you were to take some of the comments that we heard today at face value, and if they were to be accurate, I think you would be right in saying this is a mistake. But those were inaccuracies. This is just simply not drawing from the same funding sources that were mentioned. And so I just want to concur with what Ms. Schneider just mentioned. Also, this is truly, as I understand it from our staff, and I know that we have staff here that can answer these questions, this really has integrated into it the kind of safety improvements that the neighbors in that area have been asking for years. The improved lighting, the enhancements to the landscaping, the improvements at the corners. I just want to take a moment and focus on that. The young people who come across that bridge, some of whom go over to the high school, are having to cross one-way traffic at those several intersections, and that traffic is going typically at about 30 miles an hour. And for them to have a safer way to get across that street is a key piece of this project. And anybody who misrepresents that or thinks that this is some fad or something has really got another thing coming. For a senior or for a young person at an intersection to have a shorter distance to cross, for traffic not to have that much chance to run into somebody is a benefit both to motorists and to the pedestrians. If the traffic slows down a little bit, which I don't know that this will really have that big of an impact on, but if it does, that's a good thing. We don't need traffic flying through our neighborhoods, and the neighbors have been just crystal clear about that. The amount of money that is associated of this entire project with that part of it is an infinitesimal couple of % of the whole project. It just doesn't even hit the radar screen. So for all these years we've been working on this, and to get to this point, I really, really hope that not just the ones of us here on the dais, but the people in the public who are keeping an eye on this kind of thing recognize how earnestly our staff is working for the public safety. And when we talk about infrastructure, this is a really good example. So I will be supporting this project.
Okay, do you want to go ahead and make a motion?
Madam Mayor, I have a few comments. while
Okay,
it's on.
but let's let Mr. House make a motion.
Madam Mayor, I move today that we make the recommendation to the redevelopment agency that's in our book here today. We have A, B, C, D, and E, and I think I got it all in our recommendation for the redevelopment agency.
Okay, and this is to award the contract.
To award the contract for construction for the West Downtown Pedestrian Improvement Project.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Falcone.
Is there a second to the motion? I didn't hear one.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Well, I'd like to just attempt to take a little bit of the heat out of this issue and really kind of frame what we're trying to talk about here. Could somebody give me just the physical parameters of exactly where this project is going to lay down, because there is some misconception as to what area of town this is going to speak about or improve.
Mr. Bossi.
Madam Chair, Agency Board Member Falcone, this project, the West Downtown Pedestrian Improvement Project, runs from the base of the pedestrian overpasses or pedestrian bridges where they hit, and it runs all the way over to Chapala Street along Ortega and Anapamu Street. There was some confusion earlier with the West Beach project. A lot of Wests, a lot of pedestrian projects going on. That particular project is down in the waterfront from Stearns Wharf over to Los Baños.
Okay. So this is then, as you say, from Anapamu, Chapala, Delavina, and the southernmost street?
Let me clarify. It's a pedestrian corridor improvement project. So it's taking from the 101 along both Anapamu and Ortega, running all the way over to Chapala Street and including the Chapala Street intersections.
Anapamu, Ortega,
So a little
freeway.
bit of the side streets that run perpendicular will be touched as well, yes.
It's above the freeway,
Yes.
north of the freeway.
Yes.
Okay. Just so everybody has the blocks in mind. And this project was approved in what year? I know I was here.
Madam Chair, Agency Board Member Falcone, discussions have been floating for quite some time. Back in the fall of 2002, the redevelopment agency staff had a number of community meetings in the West Downtown, noting the board's desire to change focus, again, as Mr. Williams said earlier, from more the downtown to what is essentially the only neighborhood in the redevelopment project area. We had a number of community meetings where, with a professional facilitator, where those folks outlined what their primary issues were in the West Downtown and what they wanted to see, and those focused on pedestrian improvement, safety, and lighting. Another one was parks. It's a bit more difficult to work on. So it started back in 2002. A report was given to the agency board in that year as well, and funding for this project, the ROUGH project, was established as part of our 2003 tax allocation bond issuance of the redevelopment agency.
Yes, thank you, I remember. But it's been a long time, and at that time, the terminology bulb out or curb extension was just beginning to be considered. I'm not even sure too many of them had hit the ground in that time. So with all grand experiments, there's a leap of faith. And between then and now, we have leaped many times. Some have worked, some have not. And what has happened in the interim, in my humble opinion, is that extensions or bulb outs or whatever you want to call them have become, for one reason or another, it's irrelevant as to why, but it has become, the reality is that they have become a lightning rod in the community. There's a great deal of controversy around them, some meritorious and some not. But I believe that we still need and could benefit from more community conversation about exactly where, exactly when, under what circumstances. Is it for schools? Is it for parks? Is it for neighborhoods? Is it for elderly? And get the community to come to some consensus as to whether or not these things should be used at all, sometimes, or always. So I know it's difficult to do that at a policy level, but I think it's incumbent upon us to give it the old college try in the Plan Santa Barbara conversation, very likely. But in the meantime, This project dates back to, as has been said a number of times, a real plea on the part of the community of that neighborhood to please pay attention to us. We need lighting. We need our sidewalks fixed. We need our streets improved. We need to make sure that our neighborhood doesn't flood. That's what this project is primarily about. That there are some of these devices that I vote against whenever I can, because I don't think that just putting them in as a new, fad is appropriate without further discussion. So I'm not in favor of the extensions on principle as a whole. But I'm not sure that I can go against this project, which, after all, is a bid award. I mean, the project has been approved, after all, but, as Bonnie said, but in that to award or not award is a valid conversation. That's why we're having this conversation. We can talk about it. I'm not sure I can go negative on all of the rest of the amazing improvements that we're going to get to this well underserved neighborhood, just for some of these devices that I happen to disagree with, but they are part of this project, and we are at the bid award stage. So if we could undo it and go back and just do curb cuts in those places, I would be much happier. But I don't want to delay this neighborhood getting their lighting and their safety, and so I'm going to split the baby on this one and probably vote for the motion.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
Okay. Thank you very much. That's item 15. Now we have the rest of the consent.
Move consent calendar, the rest of it.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. We took an hour to do that. Oh, well. Finance Committee, Mr. Horton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Finance Committee met today at 12:30. We started out with a discussion of some minor revisions in the investment policy for the city. We then moved to two very important and great housing projects, one on 1416 and to 424 East Coda, and the other one on 421 East Coda. We recommended both of those projects.
Okay, thank you. So they'll be coming at another time. Okay, thank you very much. Item number 20, please.
Item number 20, Cabrillo Boulevard Bridge Replacement Project. Recommendation that council adopt by reading of title only a resolution of necessity by the council of the city of Santa Barbara for permanent and temporary easements located on real property commonly known as 22 West Cabrillo Boulevard, 6 and 10 State Street, and 13 East Cabrillo Boulevard, assessors parcel numbers 033-102-017, 033-111-011, -012, and -006.
Thank you. Okay, this is, oh, gee, I forgot to turn the page. I was going to read construction of downtown pedestrian. Oh, we don't want to do that one again. So this is Ms. Anderson's for the Cabrillo Boulevard Bridge, which is needing replacement. I need to get to the... you did it.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. We're here to talk with you today about a property acquisition process and to just give you a brief piece of background on the project that this relates to. This is the Cabrillo Boulevard Bridge Replacement Project. In 2004, as you recall, Caltrans went through an inspection of the condition of several of our bridges and the identification of deteriorated conditions at the Cabrillo Bridge allowed it to qualify for grant funding under Caltrans program. We determined after that refinement study in 2005 that the replacement was necessary, and we became eligible for FHWA grant funding, which pays 88% of the cost of the project. And we are now in the property acquisition phase and at the final stages of those negotiations. There would be a new bridge with a 5-lane bridge replicating what the existing 1927 bridge looks like, recognizing the historic nature of this area. The bridge improvement would increase the safety and help establish the pedestrian pathways more clearly, allow adequate water flow under the bridge, and replace the deteriorated conditions at the existing bridge. It'll also improve the steelhead trout and tidewater gobies habitat areas. And our projected construction schedule would begin fall of 2010 and be completed in 2012. We're estimating a $20 million construction cost. As we said, 88% of that is paid through the grants through Caltrans. And it would be funded by the Federal Highway Bridge Program, and our Measure D funds would provide the local match. You can see the area that we're talking about, of course, on the map, right in that area. And this is a bit of a view of the deteriorated conditions that you don't often get this angle of the bridge, of course, when you're on top of it. But there is some pretty visible deterioration of the structure itself. So that's obviously one of the reasons why it ranked so highly for project funding through the FHWA program. And this is another bit of a close-up that shows the spalling and deterioration that's visible with the structure itself. And 1927, it's been there a while. And just one more angle that, once again, shows the deterioration. So, with that as background, the need for the easements that are going to be required for the project to move forward are laid out in the staff report. There we go. There are the existing creek banks. And you can see the encroachment. So the right-of-way acquisition, in order to fit the schedule that we are working toward for construction, needs to be completed in fall of this year. We'll also be completing the final design, going out for bid during the winter, and that will enable us to have a contract in place to begin the construction in fall of 2010, with the completion schedule in 2012. So we've been working to develop a right-of-way acquisition process. We're now at the point where we have identified the areas that are needed for easements to allow construction to move forward. We have worked with the design to ensure that we are only looking at those areas that would be necessary to allow the safe reconstruction of the bridge in this area, and are at a point where we're asking to move forward with the ability to establish a formal authorization to be in the point of negotiation with property owners that allows us to move toward eminent domain as necessary. We believe that we are still in a point of negotiating how that will work, recognizing there are some complexities with some of the parcels, and are attempting to work as collaboratively as we can with the property owners to mitigate impacts. But it is a basic, we're down to the point of identifying the minimum requirements for the easements necessary to move forward, and that's why we're before you today. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to entertain them at this time.
Okay, Mr. House.
Yes, this question may be for Mr. Wiley. I just want to see if I understand something that's in our staff report. There's it references different sections, a section of the California Code of Civil Procedure, and specifically our staff report says that as provided in the State Code of Civil Procedure, this is on page 3 of our staff report at the top, the public hearing related to the proposed adoption of the resolution of necessity should be limited to discussion of the requisite statutory findings specifically set forth in section so-and-so of the State Code. And then it has listed the 4 different findings here that then show up in our they're just sort of integrated into our resolution. Does that mean that in our discussion today, or in our conversation, or the public comment, that there's truly a limit to what we're engaging with here in this room right now? And the reason I ask that question is that in the staff report, and if I look on page 2 of the resolution, under mitigation features, it references what Ms. Anderson was just saying, having to do with, as a part of the project, that Santa Barbara shall work with the owners of the properties to be acquired to reconstruct improvements currently located on or adjacent to the subject properties, et cetera. So it seems to open up in the resolution for us to be working cooperatively with the property owners to come to some common ground and to have something. It seems like that goes beyond the actual findings. So help me a little bit with that.
Okay, Mr. Wiley.
Councilmember House, Madam Mayor. Well, let me address your last point here.
Okay, thank you.
A bit first. There are representatives, or there are property owners here in connection with this hearing, in connection with the properties involved and with this bridge project today. There are representatives of the property owners and the business owners, and Santa Barbara, I think, like most cities, has learned over the years when it comes to a public project like this that really impacts the adjacent property owners and the businesses, that the best way to approach it is to have good communication, good meetings with those property owners. In this case, we're fortunate to have local property owners, local business owners, and our access has been good. Our discussions have been good. I've been involved, and then Mr. Hill's been involved. And there's been a real cooperative effort in terms of working out the design of this project, particularly the design as it impacts the private property and the businesses. The findings, and we will continue to do that, and I don't want to speak for the property owners or for the business owners, but I feel that it's been very cooperative, and it will continue to be so. These findings, there's a habit, I think, that public staff has gotten into in connection with eminent domain findings, and it has to do with, at times, a property owner will come in and say, you don't have the right to do this. You just can't do this. And these findings are supposed to focus the council and the public and the property owner on the actual statutory authority for eminent domain, the public use, the public necessity, those sorts of things. In response, as I say, typically to a property owner says, you just can't do this. Which is really, I mean, there's no reason a property owner can't assert that, but it really is something they should try.
So the findings are establishing essentially, in the public view, the authority, and then in the resolution, that one piece I talked about there, mitigation, it may be elsewhere, is identifying our approach effectively in a cooperative approach.
Right.
And it's not in conflict. That's all of it.
Yes, I couldn't have said it better.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Okay. We have a couple of people who'd like to speak. Stephen Americana, followed by William Rogers.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, afternoon. I'm Steve Americana from the Brownstein Law Firm. I'm here representing Virginia Castanola Hunter and Renee Castanola, the owners of the property on the east side of State Street, involved in this. There's also an easement on the west side of State Street. And I just want to speak briefly about the resolution that's before you. You'll be glad to know we do not oppose the resolution. We're not here to offer any last-minute hand grenades to you.
Thank you.
What we are, I do want to just touch on a few issues. First, I'd like to echo what your city attorney has said, and that is our experience with your staff has been very good, very cooperative, very positive, very open. We think there's been excellent communication, and we like the dialogue that's taking place. And we think we're making progress towards reaching a settlement that avoids the necessity of litigation. Our objectives really are two as the property owners. Number one, we want to be sure that our tenants are protected, that the businesses, that we have three good, well-established, well-loved businesses on our property, and we want to be sure that this doesn't hurt them. And then secondly, we're very interested, as we know you are, in the quality of the water in the creek. This corner is the heart of our communities, the heart of our tourist area, and it's been for years something that none of us are particularly proud of. And this project, I think, and we think, gives us the opportunity to make this corner something we are proud of. And the water quality, the quality of the water in the creek there, is key to that, because when it sits there as it does, week after week, month after month, it really is something that people don't want to look at. And so part of the proposal we would like to work out with the city is to have a plan that is well thought through and is going to be implemented to ensure that the water quality is what we think it ought to be for the heart of our tourist neighborhood. We've been asked from time to time, well, isn't this a perfect opportunity to take the buildings in that area and redevelop them into something new, which is something that my clients thought about for a long time as well. And they've talked to a number of the most experienced, most sophisticated people in town who could see that through to completion, and have been told fairly universally that that's not possible to do because of the other problems in that area, because of the, if I can use the word, blight that exists on further up State Street between our property and the freeway. It's just very difficult to find people willing to take those risks and make those investments given that condition. Now, that's not meant to point fingers. That's simply meant to state a fact that an opportunity for reinvestment and for redevelopment, we think, has been lost because of the way that exists. Now, that, as I say, I'm not blaming anybody for that, but I think you ought to know, as the leaders of the city, that that's one of the facts of life that we're dealing with. And then finally, I'd just like to reiterate our thanks to the staff for all the cooperativeness and courtesy that they've shown to us over the last few months. Thank you very much.
Thank you. William Rogers.
Mayor, councilpersons, how are you? My name is William Rogers, Rogers, Sheffield, and Campbell. I'm here on behalf of Rusty's Pizza. I'd like to reiterate everything Steve said. We have been finding cooperation, a spirit of collaborativeness, and I think we're going to be able to resolve this. Our main concern, obviously, as a business tenant of the property, is to minimize the impacts that are going to inevitably occur as you go through this process, and where we can't mitigate them wholly, to be compensated for them, to come out zero out in this situation. And that's what we're hoping for. We fully expect it'll happen, and so far I've seen no reason not to. We will be presenting the city with our proposal, as will Steve, very shortly, and I think that will set things going very effectively. So, any questions?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Rogers. I don't see any particular questions. Ms. Falcone?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
This is either for Mr. Americaner and or for staff, and I wasn't quite sure if I was going to bring it up, but it's been brought up twice now, so I'm going to jump in there into that water, if you will. Could you explain a little bit how the habitat at the mouth of the creek, when no breach is allowed, is going to be improved through this project? And maybe we don't get an answer now, but this is a question that I know that the breach hinders the gobies, and that's part of why we were precluded from breaching 12, 15 years ago maybe. And there's a permit that we have to get from the Corps of Engineers or something to that effect that is evidently unobtainable, because I've asked many, many times over many, many years. But without the ocean coming in and out, if that condition persists, then, as some have referred to it, as Mr. Americano alluded to, quote, not my quote, but somebody's quote, sewer lagoon, how will this project, without the permit and a breach, help? And maybe this is a complicated engineering answer that I don't want to take everybody's time with today, but somewhere along the line here, this needs to be addressed in some specificity. So whoever wants to wade in the water with me, come on.
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Falcone, I'm going to ask Cal Hill, who's been deeply involved with this project for quite a while, to step into that.
Yes, many people have been doing this for many, many decades. So, thank you.
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Falcone, yes, I'll be happy to share what I know about the situation with the Corps of Engineers. Some time back, the Corps of Engineers basically told the city that there was to be no mechanical, human-made breach of the sandbar that develops naturally.
I'm sorry, I meant to say mechanical, because if the ocean, if the storms breach it, then that's all well and good. That's nature acting as nature does.
Right.
But we're not allowed to take affirmative man-made mechanical action. So
That's correct. And not only that, they've asked that if we find anybody doing it, and we have, we stop them. And the reason primarily is that this is habitat for the endangered tidewater goby. The endangered tidewater goby flourishes when the lagoon is closed and they have a lot more opportunity to find food. They do not when it's opened, and so the plan to clean up the water is not an easy one. It certainly probably will not include breaching that sand dike. And we'll be happy to look into what can be done under the permit that we have. But at this point, I don't have a plan to to clean it up, because the algae does form when that's closed, as people have seen.
Well, I appreciate your directness, your honesty, but in that the staff is maintaining that there is going to be some improvement, the property owners are maintaining, and the tenants, I'm sure, would love, and we would all love for there to be some improvement. Maybe this is an opportunity to get creative in terms of engineering opportunities and so forth. That being said, I'd be happy to make a motion to adopt the resolution of necessity.
Okay, and I'll second it. Mr. Williams, did you have something?
I just wanted to say that there are some things that the city and the property owners could collectively do, but unfortunately there are moves that require usually some of the adjacent land, which is hard to find. I mean, one of the best ways that we can, in a cost-effective way, have a better water quality is to have shade planting and the transition zone of vegetation into the creek that provides shade and therefore lower water temperatures and less algal blooms. So I mean, it's just one of those things that we should probably try to achieve, but it's difficult to achieve given the lack of space there, but is something that we should strive to do as much as possible.
I guess my point was that this is an opportunity of convergence of parties that don't normally come together, and I think that taking advantage of it in whatever shape and form that takes shape, that we owe it to the community to really work cooperatively on whatever level, shade plans, restorations, I don't know, but that's
Absolutely.
not for now.
And I just want to say to our city attorney that if you are negotiating with Rusty's for lost business time, then I think the city should have a commensurate amount of free pizzas along with any money that exchanges hands. So
you heard it here.
That's my little plug. Now that we've completely cut our food budget for the city.
That's right.
Don't go over the
Thank
gift
you.
limit,
We
though,
have,
you say.
right. Oh, Mr. House, go ahead. Sure.
Better declare it there, Das. But we have an opportunity, perhaps. I didn't know or think, or I'm not sure. Is this within the scope of the project? And if it's not, I think you should be feeling some good encouragement up here for us to take another look and see if there's some some opportunity here to do something, because not just from an aesthetic perspective, but probably from a health of the ecosystem itself. We are an urban area that drains to that place. It's not like there's no city like there used to be before the city of Santa Barbara was here, and it just, it had the dam across it basically, and there the water was. We're draining stuff off of parking lots, and we're trying to clean it up, but still it's coming from all the urban and riparian interface down to that spot. So it's not like it's getting to be clean water getting there. And so what can we do to help remedy our impact on the quality of the water there? Maybe there is an opportunity here to come up with something. I know it would really be welcomed by visitors and business owners and residents alike. So can we have that be a part of the scope of this?
Well, let me say this. First of all, there's a lot of debris in that area of the lagoon. That will be removed as a part of construction. Secondarily, there are still, sticking up from the bottom of the channel, some of the old pilings that used to support the service station that was on pilings on that corner. Those can be taken out.
Good.
That'll help a lot. Also, we are planting a sycamore tree as part of our construction. That will shade the area eventually, and that will help a lot. Beyond that, I will get with SAIC, the environmental firm that the council awarded a contract to recently, and I will ask them for any other suggestions we can come up, and we'll do the best we can under the permit.
Thank you. I was on the planning commission when we worked on that little bridge there on the other side of State Street and the parking lot, and that little transition area from the parking lot to the creek itself, the bank, all of that, with the natural plantings, even that's made an improvement. So incrementally, perhaps we can come up with something here. Thank you very much.
Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, we have to remember that part of the problem is the breakwater causes the sand to accumulate there, and so that's part of the reason it has to be freed. So, I don't know if the Army Corps of Engineers wants us to remove the breakwater or what, but, I don't think we can do that. But it just seems like that's a man-made problem, and so there should be some kind of man-made solution onto it. That's just...
Well, Madam Mayor, a couple of converging things also in terms of the timing of this project is the Army Corps of Engineers cooperative effort with the county and us and various others to do the Lower Mission Creek project. And remember, we in the city of Santa Barbara have Measure B money for restoration. So I'm wondering whether or not this project could gain the interest or at least a conversation at the Creeks Committee, and as the liaison I'd be happy to talk to Cam Benson, who's at the head of the department, if that's something that the rest of the council feels is at least a place to poke around and look at, because it seems like timing in life is everything. I mean, we all know that, but it seems to me like there are a whole host of things coming together, a whole host of opportunities, parties, projects, all coming together at this moment in time. Now, I'm talking a couple of years, but that's a moment in time in governmental speak. So, I think that this bears really looking at, because we may actually collectively be able to get to something here.
I'm pretty sure that our staff hasn't stopped looking at it, though, and it's been our direction all the time. But I agree, this is a good time to take another look and try to figure out some more, as you said, incrementally. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
To be clear, it's the approval of the resolution by necessity. Okay, thank you, for the bridge project. Thank you. And thanks for your cooperation. Go ahead and read the next item.
Item number 21, conference with real property negotiators, encroachment permit, and possible temporary lease.
Okay, and we will, I presume we will adjourn out of that closed session, and we shall see you next week. Thank you.
But I feel so gay in a melancholy way that it might